Counting
the cost of being an actuary.
That's right. Hey Dan, so why did you become an actuary?
Actuary was actually not one of my choices. Is when I actually went to Pennsylvania State University for the first couple years, I was a business student. But reluctantly, I don't think that was something I'm really interested in, just financial reporting or anything like that. So then I ended up just talking to one of my professors, and they said, "Hey, you're really good at certain things, and your analytic mind is very good, right? Analyzing stuff, communication." So they said, "Why don't you give a try for actuarial science?" That's actually one of the major. That's what the major is called, actuarial science.
Oh.
And that's how I embarked on the journey to become an actuary.
Oh wow! From what I remember, when you were dating Chinja, I always thought you were a math major.
Well, no, it was a math major. So I was business.
Business. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was business, but actuarial science actually has, well, it has two components.
Oh.
There's a business degree of actuarial science, but there's also a mathematical degree of actuarial science. But it depends on what degree you're going after. You either take more business classes or you take more mathematical classes.
I see.
But when you come out, you have this actuarial science degree, but one's given out by the business department, the other one's the mathematical department.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So your professor noticed that you had really good, like, analytical skills. How would you know it? I mean, how would a person know if they had good analytical skills?
Dude, I was in a mathematical class.
Okay, so you were able to break down things.
Yeah.
Okay. Man.
Yeah, I was in a math class, and also even when I started, like, you can even if you're in the business class, if it's not for like regulatory, information classes, it's also mathematical classes, right? That's what pretty much finance is.
Yes.
Finance is just math.
Just math.
And but on top of that, finance also gives you, the how to treat your investments properly, and how to value different investments, and the time value of money. Obviously, the longer you have it, the more money it should generate, because it accumulates and it compounds.
Yes.
So I mean, finance is pretty much math. I mean, when you're in the business field, you're pretty much half math already.
That's true. Actually, yeah, because I was a finance major, but one of the courses I really struggled with was with my investments class, because my professor was saying how, they use calculus to calculate all these numbers. In my mind, I'm thinking, that's too much. I can't.
Yeah, when you then what actuaries at the very end of the road, we're not actually at the very end of the road, but in the middle of actuary, when you have to take exams, right? In order to become an actuary, you have to pass certain exams. It's kind of like CPA.
Yeah.
You can have an accounting degree, but what really differentiates you from other accounting degrees, that you have to actually pass your CPA exam.
That's true.
And that really stamps the seal that, lets everybody know you're certified, and you're not just have a degree from a college. You're actually certified by your own maybe association or corporation. So that's what pretty much actuaries are. So after you graduate school, you have your degree, but that doesn't actually, prove anything. That doesn't. There's no credentials, right? It's just a degree. So in order to become an actuary, which is a former title, you have to pass exams on top of your school. And there's a series of tests. One of the tests is pretty much combining finance with probability. So what's the chance of getting 10 payments? Each payment is paid out a year, so the chance is you living. So because if you look at actuaries, they work in different industries, but a lot of them are like, let's say, life insurance or health insurance. So in terms of life insurance, you get payments, let's say, every month or every year, but what's the price of that premium, right? So the premium is based on your age, and the age decides how likely you're gonna live or survive the next year. I mean, it sounds morbid, but that's what life insurance is. Because why, if you're 35-year-old and you buy life insurance, it's a lot cheaper than somebody who's 80 years old and trying to buy the same amount of life insurance, because the 80-year-old has a lot less chance to live to 81.
That's right.
So, like, they're not gonna price it so that you can almost treat it like a gamble with good odds. So the pricing, that's done by the actuaries, right? So they use how much the payment is, how much the payout, because you can have 1 million, 2 million, maybe 500,000 life insurance, and depending on the age, and they give you a rate, or sometimes they take into consideration if you're a smoker or a non-smoker. So that's one of the markers they look at. But that's life insurance. What I do is I'm actually a health actuary. So I work in the health insurance company. So what I do is I look at trends for medical expenses, and I look at the utilization. I look at emerging drugs that could potentially impact the trend for next year or years after, because there are, like, science is getting better and better, right? So the drugs are getting better and better, but better drugs means more costly drugs. So there are things that we couldn't cure back in like 1990, we can cure now, but the cost of curing that disease is like $2 million per dosage.
Expensive.
Yeah. So the cost is getting pretty outrageous. Like, but it's life-saving. It's life-changing. Like, if one of the drugs we look at is for an infant disability, like if the infant doesn't have that treatment, the infant is disabled for the rest of their life. If not, they probably can't live anymore. But with the treatment, they can live maybe a normal life, something close to a normal life. So it is life-changing medicine, but it's certainly costly medicine. So those are the things that we actually have to look at. We look at what's in the pipeline, meaning what drugs are coming out next year, what drugs are coming out 2 years from now, what's being approved by FDA that's coming out, and we estimate the cost of it. We estimate how many people might use that drug.
I see.
And those things are all cost dependent. We have to make sure we know the cost, and we will get paid we need to make sure the premium we collect is sufficient enough to cover all the costs that's going to pay out.
That's true. Wow.
How do you define the word premium?
Premium for us is the monthly payment that the members pay the health plan. But it depends on, again, it really depends on how old you are. It depends on what program you are in. So let me explain. There are multiple lines of business. So if you lived in the States, you would know there's a CHIP, there's Medicaid, and there's Medicare, and there's commercial. Commercial just means they pay their own premium, or their company for their premium. Does that make sense? So if you're employed by some kind of, by Google, by Amazon, those companies pay for your premium. So it depends on which program you're in. We collect different premiums for different people at different ages.
I see.
And it used to be different for gender, but I think that's already taken away due to the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, previously, depending on, like if you're a 50-year-old male, a 50-year-old female, the male actually gets charged more than the female.
Interesting.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, let's say a 24-year-old male versus a 24-year-old female, who do you think gets charged higher premium?
Probably the female.
Yes. And why do you think that?
Maybe she has a higher chance of getting pregnant. I don't know.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh. Higher chance.
Yeah, because you think about it. If you're a 24-year-old, let's ask Jayla, like, you don't go to the hospital.
Yeah, I don't get sick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even if you're sick, you don't go to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, literally, the only reason a 24-year-old male would go to a hospital is something's falling off of him.
Yeah.
Like a finger's falling off, a leg's falling off, something's wide open.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they would go into the hospital.
That makes sense.
Right? They're strong, they're young, they can take on anything, they can take on the world. But a female, when you're pregnant, you have to go into the hospital. And that's why when you're looking at 20-year-old population, the females always cost a little bit more just because they have to go into the hospital for prenatal care, postnatal care, delivery. So that's different things that we look at. But I think that's already taken away because of the Affordable Care Act. We can't discriminate because of your gender.
Interesting. Wow, that's very interesting. So you started taking your exams to get your license after you graduated from university?
No, I started taking them when I was in college.
Oh.
And it's been a long process for me, but it's different for everybody. So you can take it as fast as 4 or 5 years, and you can take as long as 10 years. It doesn't. It's all up to you. There's no time limit. Once you pass something, that credit is forever there. So you just need to pass all the exams, and then you're given the credit.
How many exams are there?
Let me see here. They've changed it recently. So for me, I am an FSA. Or I'm sorry, I'm an ASA. So for me, I'm an ASA, which is the lower tier of actuary. I'm an associate actuary. So the higher level is called the fellow actuary. So associate, in order to reach the associate level, you have to pass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 exams.
Wow.
Yeah, so you have to pass 7 exams. And on average, each exam would take 200 hours to study.
200 hours to study.
Yeah. So it's kind of like taking a college course on your own.
Yeah.
Because after school, all these exams you have to kind of study on your own.
Yeah.
There's no classes or anything that you can take to pass these exams. So these are mostly self-study.
I see. And so
you can pass maybe 3 or 4 and take college classes with them. But the next 4 or 5, depending on how many you took in school, it's really dependent on yourself and your commitment to pass all these exams.
I see. So were you able to pass it at one time, like at one go? Like,
No. I mean, I don't know. I've failed quite a few of them, and it's taken a lot for me to even pass all of them, honestly. Just because every time you fail something and you've already spent 200 hours studying for it, it's such a discouragement, right? Because every time it's not offered any time of the year either. It's offered maybe 3 times a year or 2 times a year.
Wow.
So every time you fail, you have to wait 6 months or 4 or 5 months to try again. So, but at the same time, you need to study again, right? You would need to review all the materials again, because I don't think they actually provide, or actually maybe they do. Maybe there's a fee involved because when you fail, you just receive a letter. They don't grade. They don't send you the feedback. They don't tell you, hey, you got this problem wrong. You got that problem wrong. They just say you failed. Go study again. So, but so you really study from the beginning, and you spend another 200 hours, and you try to pass it one more time. So it's very discouraging. I honestly thought of giving up, but I've just thought maybe I'll finish it one day, and I did it for at least halfway. I'm at least halfway there, so I'm happy at the moment. But I'm gonna try for the fellow eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so how many exams are for the fellow one?
Well, for the fellow, and some of them are pretty crazy. So for the fellow, it really depends on which branch of actuary you want to be, like I previously mentioned. So there's a retirement actuary, there is health actuary, there's insurance actuary, there's life insurance actuary, and there's casualty actuary. So let me give you different definitions for each, if you don't mind. So health insurance actuary, they're pretty self-explanatory. You look at health insurance, you look at medical expenses, pharmacy expenses, and there's life insurance, which looks at like annuities or life insurance, and then there's retirement actuaries. So retirement actuaries sometimes gets hired by the government. Medicare, they pay retirement. Sometimes they consult with corporations, just because your corporations need to know how much they need to put in your retirement fund, so you have enough money when you retire. So they have to make sure they focus on the time value of money. Because you put in like $200-300 a month for the next 40 years, and you're trying to make sure whatever you put in is sufficient enough in 40 years.
That's right.
Who knows what's going on in 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they specialize in. And there's casualty insurance. Those are actuaries that work for car insurance companies and house insurance companies. So they look at different things like what's the probability of a house burning down? What's the probability of flood? What's the probability of two cars colliding? Or what's the probability of hitting a deer? And not only the probability, you also have to look at the severity. So severity just means how much it's going to cost the companies to reimburse them. So if a house burning down, it's going to cost them maybe $50,000 to fix that section of the house. But if two cars colliding each other, maybe you only need $5,000 to fix two cars. Or something lower, something higher. And so there are two major components of insurance companies. It's really just the frequency and the severity. So whatever you look at, those are the two main components, frequency and severity. So no matter if you're looking at casualty insurance, health insurance, or life insurance, the two components are essential, right? Frequency and severity, because it's always about how frequent is something going to happen and how expensive that particular event is going to cost the insurance company.
Yeah, that's true. Because I've noticed my father had to pay a lot of money for car insurance after a few accidents. So they look at your past history.
Yeah, they look at how frequent you have your car accidents, and they look at how much it's going to cost each time you have a car wreck.
That's true.
Yeah.
So have you thought about which, because you said that you want to try to, get your fellow actuary license. So have you thought about which path you want to go into? Like you want to stay in health?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much, I wouldn't say stuck, but my career path has already been mapped out for myself.
Okay.
Just because I've worked with the health insurance company for the past 8 years. And there's really no reason for me to all of a sudden change my career path to something else.
Yeah.
I mean, I can if I choose that way, but it's going to be a lot more challenging for myself just because it's going to be something completely new. And I don't have the experience anymore. Obviously, my past experience doesn't matter if I change to a new career. Right? If I all of a sudden change to casualty insurance, all of my past experience is almost out of the window. And it's not going to be very helpful to the company that I'm going to apply to or to myself just because I can't apply that knowledge further along. So for me, I'm going to go with the group and health track. So going back to the question, how many exams there are?
Yeah.
There are actually 3 more exams.
Oh, to get there.
To get there. But there's also what they call modules. Modules are just online classes that you have to take. But after every module, at the end or sometimes in the middle, there are 2 exams. So it's kind of like your midterm and final exam when you take a college class.
Wow.
So, but again, these are self-driven. So you have to enroll yourself. You have to make sure you study. Those actually have a limitation. I believe you have to finish each one within a year from the point you signed up. If you don't finish within a year, you have to pay them again because every time you register for a class, they charge you a couple $1,000s to enroll in that class.
Wow. Go ahead. Yeah.
So so did you go to school?
Sorry about that. Let me just say for people who are wondering, once you're in a job that's somewhere close to your career, let's say if you work for an insurance company, or if you work for health insurance company or casualty property casualty company, once you are in one of those fields, the companies actually pay for your exams.
Oh.
So you don't pay the exams out of your pocket.
Oh, that's good.
But obviously you have to be in one of those companies, right? You have to be employed by one of those companies. You can't work for, some random company and expect them to pay for your actuarial exams.
I see.
So once you're in one of those relative companies, or relevant companies, they usually will pay for all the exam fees, registration, travel, and they sometimes even provide study time. So you can take days off to study, so you can pass your exam. Like, again, you have to be in the relevant company.
Is your company one of the ones that will provide?
Yeah.
So if
mine's a health insurance company.
Okay, so if Chinja decides to become an actuary, can she also like?
No, in order to qualify for the program, you have to pass at least one or two exams to show that you're committed to this path.
I see.
So not everyone is qualified, obviously, because you have to pass at least one or two. It's the first two are quite challenging if you're not, mathematically inclined.
So did you go to school in China up to high school and then study in America for your bachelor's?
Oh yeah. I came to the States in 2002, and I think I went straight into high school.
Okay.
Maybe I was in the final year of middle school.
Oh, I see.
Wow.
So you did high school and university in the US.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Did you come through because from what I understand, your mom is in Australia, right?
Yeah, my mom's in Australia.
So when you came to the States, was it through like a program or how?
No, we immigrated.
Are you guys immigrated to the States?
Yeah, I immigrated with my father.
Oh, with your father, and your mom stayed in Australia.
Yeah, in the United States.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool.
Yes.
So for how many years did you study?
Well, obviously I went to college and I passed several exams, and it took me maybe 4 more years after college
Wow.
to get my ASA. Well, that's again, everybody's different. I might have taken a little bit longer than average, or maybe less than average. I'm really not sure. But after 4 years of college, I actually got my ASA.
And that's when you started working at your company after you passed?
No. I actually, Geisinger was the first company I worked for professionally. But before I was an actuary, I was an analyst.
Oh.
So I don't get the title of an actuary unless I earn the title.
I see. So it's kind of like you can be an accountant, but once you pass your CPA exam, then you're a certified public accountant. So it's So before you're an actuary officially, you're an analyst.
Yeah.
I see.
So did you transfer from one company to another?
No, first job.
Sorry?
Yeah. It's my first job in this profession. Like, I've never switched company. Geisinger has been my first health insurance company for the past 8 years.
Oh,
so it's been working.
So after you graduated from the university, you began to work for the company, and you've been working for the company for 8 years, and while you're working for that company, you achieved that certification.
Yes.
Wow. So do you feel different having that certification?
I don't feel any different. but they do. So there are things there are things that only an actuary can do.
Yeah.
So, but currently I don't do it because I report to the chief actuary. So what chief actuaries do is you have to file the rates with the government. So so the rates have to be actuarial approved. So not anybody can, just submit rates to the government. So the rates we submit to, Medicare, CHIP. So we, in commercial, we file those rates. So we have to, so what actuarial sound means, it means we're not charging too much.
Oh, okay.
And 2, we're not charging too little.
Okay. Just the right amount.
And yeah, so just the right amount within a range. And obviously we have to make sure it's competitive, meaning, there are 3, 4, 5 different insurance companies within the same region.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure it's competitive enough that you get people to sign up with you, offering the benefits from your company. And 2, you have to obviously you want to make money. And 3, you want to make sure you have enough premium to cover all the expenses that's going to incur in the designated period of time that you're going to cover these members. Because insurance company I believe they're charged monthly, but sometimes annually. Medicare usually annually, because once you sign up with a health insurance company, you're stuck with them for at least a year.
I see. Before COVID, you had to go into your office every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us like a rundown of like what your day looks like? Like who assigns you work?
So what we did when I was going in person, I would say at least 6 hours of my day, I'm in front of the computer. And 2 hours, I might go to meetings, present findings, talking to finance department, or talking to IT. Because a lot of times, so what we do, we're kind of in the middle between finance, IT, operations, and all the departments. We have to make sure what we get from each department is accurate and on time. So what we talk about with IT is how accurate or how timely the claims are coming in. So obviously we have to make sure the claims are coming in on time. There's nothing broken within the claim acceptance system. So IT is in charge of loading these claims. In terms, claims are what providers or insurance providers or health service providers. So if you go to a doctor, these are providers. If you go to a pharmacy, these are providers. When you get services from them, they send a claim to the health insurance company to get paid.
I see.
So these are claims. So claims have to be accepted and then paid. And then we will see it from the back end that we pay these claims in December of 2020. How much did we pay? How much were we expecting to pay? And how much do we think that are still out there that haven't been submitted to us? That's called incurred but not reported yet. Just because there's, lag, or everybody does things a little bit differently, because maybe they only submit claims on a Friday night, or maybe they submit claims every day. So it depends on which provider you are. Your behavior is a little different. So we have to make sure we have enough reserve money in hand. So cash on hand, we have to make sure we have those cash on hand to pay all the claims that's outstanding.
I see.
So that's also one of the jobs for actuaries. We have to make sure we have enough money to cover all the expenses in the future in case, let's say, we shut down tomorrow.
Wow.
So an example of this is, let's say all of a sudden we don't exist anymore. We shut down, we bankrupt. But all the people who already provided the services, like you went to your PCP, you got your drug already, or you got your x-ray already, these people already provided their services, so they should be paid for them.
Yeah.
So even if we're bankrupt, we still have to have millions of dollars in our bank to make sure those dollars will be distributed to the providers who provided services before we bankrupt, even though they haven't submitted their claims yet, right? Because it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time for them to submit us. Sometimes people will still send in paper claims, believe it or not.
Wow, paper claims.
Like in the mail, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not, in 2020, people still fill out all the forms. They then send it in paper forms.
Wow.
Because it actually takes a lot of money to upgrade or to revamp your own practice. Like if you're a really small practice and you only have a handful of patients, is it really worth the investment? I mean, maybe it's just a computer, but you have to hire somebody, you have to get the correct systems installed. So you have to pay not only the computer, but the software attached, some employees. So all those, do you really need it if you can just survive with paper claims? That's obviously a give and take.
Has COVID affected employment at your company?
Yes, I think we obviously, like many companies in the United States right now, we froze hiring. So there's no new employees.
Okay.
But other than that, I haven't really heard anybody getting,
laid off,
let go or laid off. Yeah, but it's a challenging time. But the positive side is a lot of employees are able to work from home.
Yeah.
So that's quite a very flexible thing that we can do. Especially, like I said previously, I was sitting in front of the computer at least 6 hours a day anyways.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for me to really go in, because even the 2 hour that I was meeting with people, that can easily be replaced by phone calls or even video conference, right?
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
Like I don't actually deal with patients at all. Not like I'm a frontline worker that has to interact with anybody.
So I'm getting a really good understanding of the job of an actuary. So average customers, average health service recipients like you and me will pay a certain amount of insurance money to the health providers, and then when something happens, the claim comes from the health providers to you, and then you make sure you collect all the premiums, and then you pay them back after, or even the potential ones that's going to be incurred. So there's going to be an ongoing cycle from the recipient of the health service and the health providers and health insurance companies.
Yes. You got it, yes.
Is that correct?
It's a very good summary, yes.
So have you ever seen an actuary company that has gone bankrupt because they were not wise in their judgment? They were too like positive about what's going to happen in the future, and they were so spending, and then they didn't do their job correctly. And have you ever seen those cases?
Well, companies usually don't go bankrupt, especially insurance companies. They usually don't bankrupt that often because the rates are filed annually, right? So if you lose money in 1 year, you're going to have to correct that next year. So usually the losses or the mistakes you make are just 1 year. The next year, you obviously learn from your mistakes and you corrected your whatever calculations you did that was wrong. So typically they don't continually make the same mistake and lose millions of dollars every year. So once they find out, once they realize something's wrong, they can either, recoup that money next year or the years after to kind of get that money back. But usually they don't lose so much that the whole company bankrupts.
Oh.
So they're constantly analyzing, constantly changing.
It's constant, yeah. Every year they have to file claims. Every year they have to file rates. So at most they make that mistake once, unless you make different mistakes every year, and that compound impact bankrupts the company. However, there I know the example of previously what bankrupted multiple insurance companies. So if you remember, 9/11 was a disaster, right? So 9/11 was a disaster, and that actually bankrupted multiple companies because insurance company is not about what you cover. It's actually also about what you don't cover. So once that's why every time you buy insurance, there's like hundreds of pages of paper that you have to read through. Yeah. Right? So even if you buy health insurance, you are not actually covered for everything medically related. Yeah. So if you look at, I'm sure you guys have insurance, but if you look at insurance, your certain things are not included. For example, plastic surgery is not included. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's elective. And sometimes glasses are not included. Or maybe they're included, but at the very basic form. So they only reimburse you the cheapest glasses. Yeah. If you want anything fancier, if you want sunglasses, those are not covered, even though you really need them. And also LASIK, the laser surgery for eyes, those are not covered because those are not essential. Yeah. So you can obviously wear your glasses. So there's no reason for health companies to pay $2,000-$3,000 to fix your eyes when they can buy you a pair of glasses for $50.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of things are not covered even if you have health insurance. So when you buy any type of insurance, you have to know what's covered, what's not covered. So when going back to 9/11, why all the companies bankrupted? Because they did not exclude terrorism in their contract. And that's why there's a mass casualty. And obviously when when 9/11 happened, all the employees are concentrated in that building. Yeah. And most likely a company has the same insurance from the same company. Yeah. So all of a sudden you have to pay out, let's say, thousands of life insurance at the same time.
Wow.
You're not prepared for that, right? Because you're only prepared for a calculated number of payouts a year. You're not ready to pay out, thousands at the same time because of certain catastrophic event. Yeah. So terrorism was not, because it never really happened in the United States, and companies weren't smart enough. They didn't know better, so they did not exclude terrorism from their insurance companies. So a lot of casualty, insurance companies bankrupted. A lot of life insurance company bankrupted just because how much they have to pay out, all at the same time. A lot of insurance companies prior to 9/11, they actually excluded natural disasters. So like hurricane, tornado, those are excluded from regular insurance. But you can certainly buy hurricane insurance. You can buy flood insurance. So those are
Extra.
fringe insurance products. Those are usually called riders. So they're called riders just because they're not usually the main insurance. So the main insurance, for example, in terms of natural disaster, is your house insurance, right? You have your house insurance, and the rider would be flood insurance or hurricane insurance or some other natural disaster insurance. You can certainly buy insurance for these fringe events, fringe like natural disasters, but it's usually not in the main insurance. Those are add-ons that you have to buy additionally.
Wow, very interesting.
So, I think in China and Korea, you usually go through preparatory institute to pass any exam because it turns into a really good industry. You can make money by teaching and preparing students toward that specific exam, and there are so many exams. So, how is it over there in the US? Do they have those kind of institutes?
Oh yeah, a lot of them are. So for each exam, you can certainly sign up for online classes, and those are usually organized by actuaries who pretty much just focus on teaching the future students how to pass exams. So yeah, you can, and there are also in-person conferences that you go to help you review the stuff that you've studied in the past. So they're usually ordered or organized like a month before the exam is due to help you review everything that you should know, everything that's very important, because not all, so they give you a quite long list of topics that you have to study, but each topic is obviously weighted differently depending on how often they show up on exams or how often or how many score is attached to each subject, right? Some subjects are maybe 20% of the exams, and some maybe just only 5% of the exam. So obviously you want to spend a lot more time getting that 20 points than the 5-point subject. So there are conferences that help you focus on, which ones are important, which one you need to maybe spend a little bit more time on, and they help you review all the topics. They help you go through examples, problems in the past exams, just to help you, solidify your understanding and your knowledge. But each one is, there's certainly an industry to help you pass your exams. And and we go to a testing center. I mean, obviously, those testing centers also charge money to host those exams.
So, have you taken advantage of any of those?
Yeah. So from my work again, I'm reimbursed for one exam and one, they call it study aid. So you can either buy an online class or you can go to an in-person conference. So you can they reimburse not only your exam fee, and they also buy your books, and they also provide one study aid.
Per year or just once, like your whole?
No, it has to be approved by your supervisor.
Your supervisor.
So, and it also depends on the budget of the department. I mean, there's a limit amount of funds available. So.
I see.
What if you keep failing all the time and you expect the aid all the time?
They're not gonna.
How are they going to look at you?
No, so they only provide, I believe what they do is they actually provide up to 2 exams in case you fail. So after the second one, obviously you have to try it with your own money.
Yeah.
And the books are always there. The study aid usually don't last forever. So they usually last for a year, or obviously the in-person conference you can only attend once.
Yeah.
So those are limitations. But if you want to buy it again, you have to pay it out of your own pocket. So the company usually provides study time once, and they provide exams maybe twice, and one study aid. So they don't continuously provide funds for a failing student.
So what kind of personality traits would thrive as an actuary, and what kind of personality would just so like not enjoy the job?
I would say, again, I've listed what I do on a daily basis. I spent most of my time in front of a computer. So there's not a lot of human interaction unless I go into meetings.
Wow.
It's not like a car salesperson who's just talking to people all the time, or front desk person who's always helping somebody. There's a lot of communication, but you have to be, there's a lot of commitment, right? Because you have to study all these exams on your own time. And there's so many distractions in this world, right? In order to sit down and study, instead of playing video games or hanging out with your friends or hanging out with your, girlfriend or whatever, you have to have the commitment, you have to have the resolution to sit down at a table and just go through the books, go through the material. So that's one thing. Two, it's about, it really is something that you have to be passionate about to really get into this job. Because there's a lot, I wouldn't say it's boring, but you do have, similar requests or similar tasks, but it kind of rotates annually. Yeah. Because you obviously every year you're doing the same thing, right? You're filing rates, you're making sure money is the same. I mean, there's almost no change on a very high level when you look at it. But at the detail level, things do change a lot, and they change quite often. So government give out new policies, and you have to make sure you adapt to those policies. New disease come out, like COVID. That changed a lot of things for the health plan and the healthcare providers. And so you do have to make sure you don't get bored very easily. It's also a very challenging job. It's a very challenging job. There's a lot of money involved, and I wouldn't say you're constantly under pressure, but you have to, obviously, like Jae-Hwa said earlier, what if you make a $10 million mistake? That's something you don't want to hold onto your title. That's something you don't want on your resume. Hey, I lost the company $10 million just because I made a calculation mistake. So you have to be very meticulous. Maybe you double check your calculations twice, 3 times. Have somebody else look at your numbers. Just make sure all the numbers are correct. So there's a lot of auditing going on with the calculations, the analysis that we do. What else? Let me think. I think communication, you also need that as well, just because you want to not everybody is going to be mathematically inclined as you are, you know? Like, if I go into a meeting, if I were to present some type of numbers or projections, not everyone is going to understand all the math involved. So I have to make sure people understand what I'm presenting.
Yeah.
Even though, I understand it well, doesn't mean somebody else in the room is going to understand my message. So you have to really understand your audience, make it simple for them to understand. And not joking, but like graphs actually help a lot, especially if you like trends. If you look at trends, graphs help a lot. And tables help a lot too. Whatever you got to do just to make your presentation easy to understand, so people understand what message you're trying to send, and they get the right conclusion and things gets moved along easily. If you ever worked in a corporation, everything takes so long to accomplish, so you don't want to have any type of hiccup on your end. So you want to make sure you move it as fast as you can.
Wow, it's very informative.
Wow. So, do you think you're enjoying your job?
Oh yeah, I do love my job. I mean, it has a lot of flexibility right now, and like I've grown up sitting in front of a computer, and I've never hated it, and it's been really fun. I do a lot of coding as well, and coding has been really fun, really challenging. You learn a lot of things, a lot of logics, a lot of syntax in coding, a lot of manipulation, data manipulation. So those are really fun for me, at least. Again, that's different personality, different interests. So
coding is something that you do to turn something obvious into something like secretive. Is that what you do?
No.
What is
not secretive?
What is coding?
So coding, I use SQL. What it does is it summarizes millions of claims into manageable sizes.
Oh, I see.
So you can read it.
So you can understand what's going on better, right? Because if you look at every single claim by itself, you're never going to be finished, or you're never going to see what's really going on.
Yeah.
So what coding does, what SQL does, it kind of summarizes all the data for you, and it outputs in a very manageable database for you, like table output or any type of information structure that you created. So for me, let's say from very low level, right? From very low level, we're looking at the bottom line is all the claims are coming in, millions of records from millions of members. So you almost have hundreds of millions of medical claims or pharmacy claims coming in. And then how do you look at that? You look at it one by what type of setting they're in. So the settings talk about in medical insurance companies are inpatient, outpatient, professional, pharmacy, and you can break it out in different ways. So inpatient means you're actually getting admitted into the hospital, and you're giving birth, you have a stroke, you have a heart attack, you're actually in the hospital getting admitted. So outpatient is you're getting some type of surgery, but you can go out the door the same day. Like if you have knee surgery, you can have the knee surgery and you can get discharged the same day. So those are outpatient hospital. And then professional is just any type of anything else. So you go see your PCP, you go see your OBGYN, or you visit a chiropractor for your back pain. So those are all professional. Those are not surgeries, and those are not outpatient. Those are just professional. And then pharmacy is everything pharmacy related. So you get your prescription, you get your diabetes medication. Those are all pharmacy. So those are very high level. So we can tell, if I summarize the data that way, I can look at how many inpatient admissions there are within 2020, how many outpatient surgeries there are in 2020. So that data is summarized when I code it, right? I code it. I want to see however I want to manage the data. So you can also code it in different ways. You can split it into the previously mentioned line of businesses like CHIP, Medicare, Medicaid, commercial. So you can split the claims in these lines of business. And for us, for our insurance company, each line of business actually have their own actuary. Oh. So you have a CHIP actuary, you have a Medicaid actuary, you have Medicare actuary, and commercial actuary. And at the head of all of them is the chief actuary that oversees everybody.
I see. So when is the busiest time of the year for you guys as an actuary?
So it's actually the less busy season for us.
Right now?
Yeah. So the busiest time of us is usually the second half of the year.
The second half of the year.
That's when you have to start compiling a lot of data to make sure you have filing your rates prepared to file for next year.
I see.
So that's when you upgrade or you update your rates for next year to correct any type of bad assumptions or bad data, bad equations, bad analysis. So you correct yourself, trend it forward, just to make sure, again, you collect the correct premium for everybody in your business.
So coding is something that you do to make your data manageable, so you can sort out things, you can process things better.
Yeah.
I see. Because I've been hearing coding all over the places, and we're teaching coding to children. I'm just like, what is coding?
What we code, that's SQL, but there's so many different computer languages out there. Everybody's teaching something different.
I see. So, probably you've heard from Lily that Korean citizens pay significantly less amount of health expenses compared to Americans, and I just know that government is fully in charge of the health insurance system here, and I noticed that health providers are private entities over there. So I feel like it turned into a very big business because of the nature of the two different countries. Like just capitalism, and this one is just more government involvement.
Yep.
So and because when I couldn't hear because I got so much earwax clogging my ear. I paid like $300 just to get the earwax out. I got so traumatized by how much I was charged for having them use water and injecting water into my ears, and I was like,
in the United States or in Korea?
Yeah, in the United States, when I was doing door to door selling like Christian literature, I couldn't hear anymore. I was just like, what's going on? And I just went in and $300. So I just paid $300. I was like, so how do you see the dilemma that I just mentioned, and what do you think should be the better way to come up with?
Well, there's a lot of articles out there, but each has its own pros and cons, obviously. So let me put it in comparison here. So Canada is similarly, government-controlled health insurance company. So to them it's free, but it comes out of their taxes anyways,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing's ever free.
Yeah.
So they think it's free, but it comes out of their taxes. But here, I mean, it also comes out of our taxes, but on top of that, we pay for our own health insurance, or our companies pay for their health insurance companies. So there's pros. The pros for the United States is it's private, so whoever has insurance goes to the hospital faster. Not everybody has insurance. Not everybody has insurance, so those who don't obviously don't go to hospital, or they pay out of their own pocket, which is, like you said, very expensive. Usually, you can't afford it. So the amount of people, so the wait time in the United States is usually a little bit shorter than, let's say, Canada, China, or Korea. Let's say if you want some type of elective surgery done, you might have to wait months to get something done for you. But here it's usually a couple weeks, just because there's a lot more providers too, because they get paid so much better in the United States. That's why everybody wants to be a doctor in the United States, right? Because they get paid so well. So because they get paid so well, there's a lot more providers here than maybe in Korea or China or Canada. And I've heard a lot from many different articles. People actually migrate from their native countries to come over here to be doctors. Like I mean, if why would you make $50,000 in your native country when you can come over here and make $200,000? Wow. Especially Canada, they speak the same language, but Korea, I imagine, is a lot harder just because you have to know the language here. But I'm sure there's Korean doctors here, who migrated. Maybe they're just serving the Korean community, But I think you still have to pass some kind of certification here. Maybe you don't have to go through the same medical school just because you have a medical degree in Korea. So you don't have to go through repetitive trainings. So it is difficult for the United States. If you're unemployed, insurance is very expensive for you, unless you can qualify for Medicaid, which means you're on the low end of the income threshold. It's usually compared to the national poverty income line. So, and also the other way to get insurance for air quotes free is when you age to 65, you get Medicare. So that's free for the United States citizens. Maybe or legal or residents, not just citizens. But so it is very expensive. It actually is also a very confusing topic for actuaries too, because believe it or not, what's even funnier is, for example, you had your service done in the United States, you were charged $300, right? But the funny thing is, if a kid, maybe 15-year-old, going to the provider getting the same service, they might be only charged for like $100. So everybody's actually being charged differently depending on what type of insurance they have. You at the time may not have insurance. Did you have insurance at the time?
No.
Yeah, so at the time you didn't have insurance, you were charged $300. But if you had Medicaid or Medicare, you might be only charged for like $200. But if you were CHIP, you might be only charged like $100. So it's really a very confusing topic when you're not in the field, or even if you're in the field, it's very confusing. So the provider, even though they're providing the exact same service, they charge different amounts because of different insurance product you belong to.
Yeah, depending on how much you pay for premium every month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you pay a cheaper premium, then you'll pay more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because I was involved at that specific moment, I just saw the atrocity of the health programs. So I was wondering what you thought about the whole dynamic.
I'm sorry, what? I didn't catch that.
So I was, because you are calculating all the amounts, and sometimes you are enjoying the benefit, and sometimes you are like calculating so much money, and as you said, some people can't afford the insurance, and some people are getting better service in other countries. So I was just wondering what you thought about it.
Oh, I mean, I don't. So one of the reasons why the United States insurance costs so much is because, to be honest, I'm not even bragging about anything, but the United States actually have one of the most advanced medical system in the world.
Uh-huh.
That is, a fact, right? I mean,
Yeah.
If you want the best treatment, if you want the most technologically advanced treatment, it's probably in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And why do they have it? It's because of the funding they get. And where do you think the funding comes from? It comes from health insurance companies, or it comes from research companies, which is indirectly from health insurance companies. So, I mean, initially, from the very beginning of this video, I mentioned a baby who's like getting a treatment for $2 million. I mean, that drug is probably designed, researched, and developed and distributed in the United States first. And then other countries gets it later on. So the research and development fee, it comes out mostly from the United States. And that's why the US insurance companies charge so much to cover. Because, the companies R&D have to be reimbursed in the United States. They get most of their revenue back from all the United States companies. Because if you look at, I believe, to be honest, a lot of third world countries, they don't even pay for medication. They get their medications donated, or almost cost zero to nothing. Just because they really can't afford it and they need it the most. Yeah. So where do that's how the pharmacy companies gets their money from. They have to recoup that money from the source that's actually able to afford it, and from the origin, which just sadly is the United States.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't just look at it as something negative. I guess that's the cost that you have to pay to launch something expensive, launch something very helpful and revolutionary and innovative. So I guess somebody has to take the toll, and it happens to be this cycle that's right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately it's true. It's not something to brag about, or it's something to say negative or positive. It's just sad
reality
that that different it's just how the system is made up. And unfortunately, the United States is on the front end of it. They can afford the research development costs. That's why they pay more.
I see.
And they, all the, is there like all those pharmacy companies, Johnson Johnson, Pfizer, they're all like top-notch pharmacy companies, and they all happen to be in the United States.
Yeah.
That's just all those doctors, even not even the frontline doctors, all those research doctors, pharmacy doctors, they're doing their stuff in the lab, and they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop the next new drug that can cure maybe cancer, that can cure schizophrenia. Who knows what they're curing, but they're trying to make the next generation healthier, the next generation better. But unfortunately, it comes at a very steep price. That's for sure.
That's true.
Wow, thank you, Dan. I really enjoyed the information that you have given to us. It was very practical and very easy to understand.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I tried to do.
I think you're really good at explaining things. I think you can totally teach.
I don't know if I can handle the students like my coworkers. If they don't listen, the thing is, I get very impatient if I have to explain myself more than twice. And that's what teachers do, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't, if somebody doesn't understand something, you say it in a different way. And if they don't understand it again, you have to find a different way to say it. But for me, if I say it one time and I say it a different way, I'm not going to be very happy the third time I find it.
Yeah, that's where the character building comes in.
Yeah, because I'm trying to make it easy for you to understand as well. So that's why I don't know if I can explain something over and over again to a student who just doesn't get it. That takes a different type of patience.
Yes.
Yeah. We do it all the time, every single day.
He does it more than I do. Usually, if I explain something to a student and if they don't understand, I'm like, Joa, your turn to explain. I'm done.
Yeah, because when I was teaching at a school, middle school and high school, I was always in charge of like the lowest level kids, and I couldn't believe myself that they didn't know anything. So I think I developed a lot of skills there.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think if I were to teach something, I would have to teach something mathematically related.
Yeah.
And I think that is the hardest thing to teach a big class.
Yeah.
That's true.
How do you make sure all the students get it?
Yeah.
The thing is, math is you build it upon something, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do calculus, you have to know algebra first.
Yeah.
If you want to know algebra first, or if you want to learn algebra, you have to understand multiplication or addition, subtraction.
Yeah.
But what if one student lost somewhere in the beginning?
Yeah.
Like, how do you make up that knowledge to help them go further?
Yeah.
That is, it's not like history. It's not like English. I don't think they're based on the foundation. But math, you build it on top layer on top of layer. You can't miss one step. Otherwise, you're pretty much completely lost. I feel like that's why a lot of kids are lost in math.
Yes.
Just because maybe one of their foundation class wasn't done correctly.
Yeah.
And then you're lost forever, right? If you never, it sounds crazy, but it's like, if you never did your multiplication subtraction correctly, you're lost forever.
Yeah.
There's no catch-up class that you take, like if you never done multiplication, subtraction, addition, there's no way you're gonna do geometry.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna do calculus, and there's no way you're gonna do anything beyond that. And then those students are just, we call them, failures. We call them, bad students. But their foundation wasn't there, so it's hard to build upon what their foundation was lacking.
That's true.
That's very true.
Yeah, I think math is like very hard to teach, just because it's so fundamental.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
I think it's my first time hearing from somebody that is working for a field that really requires math, and I think it was almost my first time seeing math as something very fundamental and foundational and very powerful tool to help people. And I've been always thinking, wow, math is so useless, I've never used it, and there's somebody that is using it and making money and that is really contributing to the society. So
yeah, I mean otherwise like people will lose their lives or lose their houses, like if insurance wasn't there. I mean, the funny thing is, I work in the field and I see people's messages, I talk to people, they always think insurance is a fraud. It's crazy. I mean there are certain things that's a fraud. For example, like I think what's very fraud is you buy insurance on your baby, life insurance on your baby. Like that's something almost fraud-like, because why would you ever want life insurance on your baby?
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to live a lot longer than you.
Yeah.
So that's almost a fraud. But why people think insurance is a fraud? It's usually because they pay so much, they never get anything back.
Yeah.
Right? Especially health insurance, house insurance, car insurance. Car insurance, if you have no accidents or anything, you pay them $100 a year, hundreds of dollars a year, and you get nothing in return.
Yeah.
And sometimes another insurance that I think it's not fraud, but almost close to fraud, is like Apple Care.
Oh, Apple Care.
That's also insurance if you look at it this way, because they charge you a couple $100 initially.
Yeah. And
they promise to replace or repair your iPhones. Yeah. That's also insurance, to be honest.
Yeah.
So they collect premium, and they, in return, give you services in the future.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, to me, it's not fraud, but it's almost not a very good investment. But a lot of people I talk to sometimes think health insurance is a fraud because they pay $500 to $1,000 a month to get health insurance, but they never get anything.
Yeah.
And they also complain, hey, why do I still have to pay $20 copay to see my PCP, even though I already paid $500 or $1,000?
Yeah.
But the thing is, insurance is never about the return on investment. Insurance is about the what if event.
Yeah.
What if I have a car accident? What if my house burns down? Those are very rare events. It almost looks like a fraud, but it's not, because it's preventing the financial burden that you cannot handle.
Yeah.
If it actually happened.
Yeah.
Like, if you pay my house insurance maybe like a couple $1,000s a year, like if I don't have it and if my house burns down, I'm homeless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but there is a chance my house will never burn down in the next 50 years.
Yeah.
So there's no return on investment to calculate but it's the safety, and it's the prevention or the readiness that you have in case something happens. Then you would have the financial means to get back on your feet and continue live the way you do. And that's what insurance is there for. I mean, in terms of health insurance, let's say, I hope you're all healthy, right?
Yeah.
But if something does happen, let's say, you're in the United States, you clean your ear for like $300. Can you imagine if you have a bladder stone or if you have some kind of like infection?
Wow, yeah.
That's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think nobody's actually prepared to pay that amount of money.
Yeah.
So it is there. Insurance is there to make sure you have the safety net so that once something does happen,
you're prepared.
You can repair it. You can go on with your life like nothing happened, and that's what insurance is really for.
Wow, that's beautiful. I've never seen insurance companies as a safety measures that are actually safeguarding the whole society, and people are chipping in to make sure somebody is being taken care of. And
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, you're like every time you pay premium, you're not only protecting yourself, you're also making sure other people are getting taken care of as well. So, just to maybe end on this one, but I think life insurance is very important, especially when you have somebody dependent on you.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you don't need life insurance when you're single or by yourself, nobody dependent on you. But as soon as you have a family, I think life insurance is very critical, just because if something does happen to you, you want your wife to be well taken care of. You want your kid to be well taken care of. But because if you imagine them losing you, they're not only losing you, they're losing your part of your income. So if you're buying a house, if you're paying mortgage, if you're not there to provide that income, they might lose the house. They might not be, because there's going to be a lot of financial burden on the other person. So you want to make sure whoever is dependent on you has the proper, money or enough funds to provide for whatever the needs are, not only for you but for the kid, for your wife, maybe for your parents. So I think it's essential as soon as you have a family.
I have a quick question, because actually earlier you mentioned that buying insurance for your baby is almost like a fraud, but actually my parents bought Julie and I life insurance when we were little kids. So does that count as like life insurance? Because you recommend that we buy life insurance as soon as we have a family, right? So we still have the life insurance from when we were younger. How does that work?
I mean, I would never recommend it, just because, like, what does your parents never dependent on your income.
Yeah, that's true. So
to live their life.
Yeah.
So why would you ever want life insurance on your kids?
Yeah.
When you lose them, that's already unfortunate enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's it gonna do with $100,000?
Yeah. So, but
they never needed that money to start with.
Yeah.
So that's what life insurance should be treated as. If something happens to that person,
yeah,
who actually needs that money to live on their life.
Yeah. So
if you guys have a baby, yeah, like if you guys have a baby, I recommend getting life insurance just because if something does happen to somebody, hopefully not obviously, but if something does happen, you want your baby to have a good life. You don't want like if you ever heard of like single mom working like 3 jobs where the baby never sees the mom and is with the grandparents. Yeah. You know, I mean, you don't want that life for your wife and kid, you know. You want them to have the money so your wife can still work a regular 8 to 5 job, see your kid, and your kid can go to school, you know, can afford school, you know, like they can afford college in the future. If it's all dependent on one mom's income or one father's income, it's not going to be sufficient. Yeah. So you want to make sure you have the proper safety net as soon as you have a family.
So is it possible to transfer the ownership? Because my dad has the ownership of our life insurance. Is it possible for him to transfer ownership to somebody and then add the children as beneficiaries to make use of that life insurance?
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I read somewhere.
I don't think so.
Oh, you can't? Oh.
Yeah, because like I said, but I think there are ways you can do that, but it's not as easy as transfer. A lot of things have to change. So like I said previously, everybody's charged differently based on your age, based on your gender, based on your smoking status. So whatever you paid, whatever your parents paid, they paid the insurance company to cover your events. Yeah. Right. So you were like, maybe they started at 1, maybe they started at your birth. I have no idea, but they paid that rate. But it's not going to be the same rate when you want to transfer it to like somebody else. I see. So, yeah, what the face value is how much they will pay you if something happens. So it could be $1 million, it could be 500,000, and that obviously depends on, you know, how healthy you are. Sometimes they require a doctor's note saying you have this condition, that condition, just to, you know, make sure that you're not dying in the next 2 years with cancer.
That's true.
You know, so that they get a payment of $1 million for certain within 2 years. So they're too smart for that.
Yeah, that's true. So. Okay, thank you, Dan. Appreciate
it. You're welcome.
Thank you. It was very fun to hear from you.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
What's the monitor on the side?
This one. This is his second screen. It says it's the logo counting the cost. YouTube channel.
Oh,
it's
nice.
The second screen.
How many videos have you made so far?
More than 10.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we actually interviewed Tony, so you can check out his video.
Yeah, I saw Tony's system engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun to hear from people.
Yeah, I'm planning on interviewing Chinja next.
Yeah.
I'll message her now.
Well, we should make sure you interview whichever you want to interview, because she's got many jobs so far. You know, you can interview for being a baker.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
Or an analyst in an insurance company.
Oh.
So she's an analyst in an insurance company.
Yeah, she's an analyst.
Oh, okay.
Good suggestion.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, but certainly I think baker is a lot more fun than an analyst.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Have a good
Yeah, you're
night.
welcome.
We'll
See
see.
ya.
We'll see you when we visit next time, or when you catch up again next time.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever that is. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's 2022.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, good night.
Good
night.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.